It's a little overdue, but part 2 is here. A month ago, I made a video about the most important thing every team needs to do this offseason, but I didn't include any playoff teams because their season wasn't over yet. Now that the season's over, I can talk about the playoff teams. So this will be a continuation of that video. You guys can watch part 1 if you want, but most of this stuff is outdated since it was released a month ago, and some of the teams have already done what I suggested. But before we get into what the rest of the league needs to do this offseason, 99% of you guys that watch my videos are not subscribed. You guys can change that by clicking on the subscribe button and turning on the notifications so you know when I upload videos. I would also really like it if you guys gave this video a like. It would help my channel out a lot. Alright, let's get into it. The Eagles stunned a lot of people this year when they made it to the playoffs, and they could build off that success this offseason by spending their 3 first-round picks wisely. Thanks to the Colts and Dolphins giving away their first-round picks last year, the Eagles now have 3 first-round picks this year, which are all in the top 20. The Eagles have a lot of needs they need to fill, like safety, a cornerback 2, linebacker, a wide receiver 2, and a defensive end. They can use those 3 first-round picks to fill most of those needs, but they need to make sure they get the best players of their needs available. 3 first-round picks for one team doesn't happen often. They can't do what the Dolphins did in 2020 and miss on all 3 picks. They need to scout and evaluate the players the best they can, at least better than what they did in the past when they decided J.J. Arcega right side was better than DK Metcalf, and when they decided Jalen Reagor was better than Justin Jefferson. The Pittsburgh Steelers made it to the playoffs and lost by 3 touchdowns to the Chiefs in their wildcard round. They go into the offseason needing to improve many things like the secondary and offensive line, but before they do any of that, they need to find Ben Roethlisberger's replacement. Big Ben finally retired after 18 seasons, and the Steelers don't have anyone that is a for sure franchise quarterback. The Steelers are a team full of talented players like Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth, Micah Fitzpatrick, Cam Hayward, and TJ Watt. All that talent will be wasted if they don't find a good quarterback to replace Big Ben. How will they do it? Will they start either Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins? Will they sign a quarterback from free agency? Will they trade for one? Or will they draft a quarterback? They need to figure out which option is the best for the team. The Patriots were able to make it to the playoffs in the first year of the Mac Jones era, but they got their asses handed to them by the Bills in the wild card. But that doesn't mean the future isn't bright for them. They just need to do many things like bringing back J.C. Jackson, get a linebacker, a defensive tackle, and an offensive tackle. But they need to make sure to get Mac Jones another weapon. The Patriots have good weapons like Hunter Henry, Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne, and Nelson Aguilar. But besides Hunter Henry, none of these guys are elite. Getting a wide receiver 1 will not only help with Mac Jones' development, but it will improve the offense. Whether they find one in free agency or in the draft is fine with me. They just need to make sure Mac Jones has a really good wide receiver 1 in 2022. I don't think I need to explain how crazy the Raiders season was, since people like me have talked about it a lot, but just in case you didn't hear anyone talk about their crazy season for the first 1,000 times, look at these headlines. Amazingly, they were able to make it to the playoffs, but after the season was over, they moved on from Mike Mayock and Rich Bisaccia, and replaced them with Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels. What does Ziegler need to do to help out Josh McDaniels and the Raiders? Well, he can get a guard, tackle, linebacker, and defensive tackle, but the number one thing Ziegler needs to do this offseason is finding a good wide receiver 1. The Raiders' passing offense was doing well when they had Henry Ruggs, but after his incident, it got worse. I know Darren Waller missed some games during that stretch, but that helps my case even more because the offense didn't have an elite wide receiver 1 that will help Carr and the Raiders out a lot. Yes, Hunter Renfrow is a good wide receiver, but he is not a wide receiver 1, and Waller shouldn't be the only elite target Carr has. Getting Carr a really good wide receiver 1, whether it's in the draft or free agency, will help the offense flourish. The Arizona Cardinals looked to be a Super Bowl contender when they started the year 7-0, had a good offense and defense, and Kyler Murray was making a case for MVP. But the Cardinals fell off and almost missed the playoffs, but they still made it and embarrassingly lost to the Rams. But what can they do to improve the team and avoid another second half flop? Well, I was going to suggest firing Cliff Kingsbury, but that will not happen. But they can still improve the team by adding a defensive lineman, cornerback, and a guard. But they need to make sure to retain some key players that are leaving making this offseason. As of right now, they currently have 25 unrestricted free agents. I'm not going to list all the players, I will just list the important ones. The worst part about this is their cap space. It's not terrible, but when you have Chandler Jones on that list, it's not good. But they can bring back James Conner, Chase Edmonds, and A.J. Green on team-friendly deals. Chandler Jones and Zach Ertz might not be so willing to accept team-friendly contracts, but there is this thing called restructuring contracts and cutting players. They can move some money around, try to bring back one of the two or maybe both. So there is still hope for both of them to return. The Cardinals just need to somehow make that happen. The Dallas Cowboys were able to make it to the playoffs for the first time since 2018, and they lost to the 49ers in a weird fashion. And Mike McCarthy's on a hot seat. Maybe they shouldn't have hired a coach that can only win one Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know, that's just my opinion, but what do I know? Anyways, the Cowboys have a chance to get better this offseason. If they want to accomplish that, they need to add more pieces to the defense. Micah Parsons had a great year, and although some have negative thoughts about Trayvon Diggs, he still had a good year. But they still have some holes they need to fill at free safety, defensive tackle, linebacker, and another edge rusher. But saying they need to add more pieces to the defense is easier said than done. They can clear cap space by restructuring contracts and cutting players, but I have a gut feeling they will try to get Dalton Schultz back on the team, and he may be getting some nice contract offers this offseason. Now, this might be a hot take, but I think they will be fine without Schultz. They have a good receiving unit with Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, and they can just get another receiver and tight end in the later rounds of the draft. Improving the defense is the most important thing the Cowboys needs to focus on this offseason. The Bills were 13 seconds away from making it to their second straight AFC Championship game. Then Patrick Mahomes happened. This was heartbreaking for Bills fans because they wasted an outstanding performance with Josh Allen and were so close to getting their revenge on the Chiefs. So what are the things the Bills need to do to make sure that Josh Allen's performance doesn't get wasted again? There are many things the Bills can do to improve the team. They could get a defensive tackle, another wide receiver, a running back, and a guard. But the one thing they need to make sure they do this offseason is add another cornerback. I know this seems like a controversial take since they have one of the best pass defenses in the NFL, and Tre'Davious White is returning from his ACL injury, but there's a good chance Levi Wallace is leaving this offseason after having his best season ever, and the Bills can't afford him. They can move money around, but I don't think they'll do that for Levi Wallace. So if I were the Bills, I would try to get another cornerback in the first round and pair up that guy with White and have the best cornerback tandem for years to come, and maybe they can finally neutralize Patrick Mahomes. When the Titans got Julio Jones in the offseason, a lot of people like me thought they had a great chance of going to the Super Bowl. Well, that didn't happen. They go into the offseason with many things to improve on, like getting a tight end, a center, and a defensive tackle. But the most important thing they need to do is bring Harold Landry back. I almost went with looking for another quarterback, but I don't think they'll get a good one in the draft, and I don't think any team will be willing to trade their quarterback for Ryan Tannehill with an awful contract. Plus, the Titans can't release Tannehill without suffering financial consequences until 2023. So I went with getting one of their best defensive players back. Harold Landry has been outstanding since getting drafted in 2018, and he could get a big contract this year. The Titans could give him what he wants, but they don't have a lot of money. But as I've been saying for the majority of this video, for many teams, they can just move money and create room for Harold Landry. They can't lose a player like him. They do have Jeffrey Simmons and Danico Autry on their team, and Bud Dupree, who could most likely bounce back next year. That is, if he doesn't get into any more fights. But if they want to compete for a Super Bowl, they need to bring back one of their best players no matter what the cost is. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers were poised to repeat as Super Bowl champions, but fell short of repeating, and they're going into the offseason with some uncertainty about the future, since the greatest quarterback of all time finally retired. Many people have said they need to go after a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. That wouldn't be a dumb move since Gators legend Kyle Trask might not be ready yet, but I don't think finding a quarterback for 2022 is their top priority. I think trying to get Chris Godwin back is their biggest priority. Before going down with an ACL tear, Godwin was having a great season for the Bucs and has been one of the Bucs' best receivers in the last couple of years. As of right now, their only valuable weapon is Mike Evans, as there's a good chance Gronk is going to a different team in 2022. Cameron Brate, Tyler Johnson, and Cyril Grayson are nice, but you know what's nicer? Having Chris Godwin playing with these guys. The NFC South right now is wide open. The Bucs have to take advantage of that, and getting Chris Godwin back will help them out a lot with that, regardless of who the quarterback is. The Packers looked poised to win it all this year, but lost to the 49ers, a team that has constantly given the Packers a lot of trouble in the playoffs. The Packers have a fascinating offseason coming up as there's a lot of uncertainty with the future of this team. The Packers need to figure out what their future is. Right now, their cap space is not looking good. Of course, they can clear that money by restructuring contracts and cutting players. If the Saints can clear $100 million, the Packers can clear $44 million. But then there is this list of players potentially heading into free agency, which includes Devontae Adams and Robert Tonyan, and Adams wants a lot of money. I can't blame him for wanting a lot of money since he is arguably a top 3 receiver. And there is the uncertainty of Aaron Rodgers' future. Will he stay with the Packers? Will he want to be traded? Or will he retire? There have been reports that the Packers are prepared to go all in for Rodgers. That isn't a terrible idea, but even if the Packers decide to go all in, they still need to figure out the future. Specifically, Jordan Love, the first round pick from 2 years ago. Is he still the future of the team? If he is, then keep him, I guess, and let him sit behind Rodgers for a couple more years. If not, trade him and get good value for him. What do I think they should do? I don't know. I think cap space is a myth, and the Saints and Bucks proved that last year, and the Packers could easily clear $44 million, like I said earlier, and get some key players back and keep Rodgers around for a little longer, and compete since the NFC is still wide open even after the Rams won it all. They could also rebuild and hand the keys over to Jordan Love since the Packers might not be able to clear the cap space as easily as I keep on saying they will, and won't get key guys back. I just don't know which is the best thing for the Packers. But thankfully, that is not my decision to make. That's the Packers' decision to make, and they need to make that decision soon. The San Francisco 49ers were so close to making it to their second Super Bowl in 3 years, but just fell short of it. The 49ers have many needs they need to address, like cornerback, defensive line, right tackle, and safety. But they need to first find the best value possible for Jimmy Garoppolo. We all knew that Jimmy G was not going to be around in San Francisco for long when they decided to spend their 3rd overall pick on Trey Lance. So the 49ers are 100% going to trade Jimmy G. Question is, what can they get for him? Probably not as much as Aaron Rodgers and maybe Deshaun Watson will cost, but there is always one team so desperate for a quarterback they'll overpay for him. The 49ers just need to find the highest bidder and use whatever picks they get to improve their team and maybe get some young studs. For the first time since 2018, the Kansas City Chiefs fell short of the Super Bowl, but unlike some of the teams in this video, they still have one of the best quarterbacks in the league in Patrick Mahomes, and other great players like Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, Chris Jones, Willie Gay, and Nick Bolton. There isn't a whole lot this team needs to do this offseason, but they still need to improve the defense. The Chiefs are most likely losing Sharon Reed, Melvin Ingram, Javarius Ward, and most importantly, Honey Badger this offseason, and the defense had its issues even with those guys around. I would say they need to bring Honey Badger back, but I think he's going to be a bit pricey for the Chiefs, and there's the fact that Matthew has had his problems with the Chiefs fan base. So I would try to clear some room for a big name player or maybe some cheap studs and draft the best defensive player available in the draft. The Cincinnati Bengals stunned everyone this year, and they not only won the AFC North after finishing last in the division last season, but made it to the Super Bowl. But unfortunately for the Bengals, the Rams beat them in the Super Bowl. But the Bengals have a very bright future with Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Trey Hendrickson. Usually it's hard for me to point out the glaring needs of a team that made it to the Super Bowl, but for the Bengals, there was one glaring need. They need to address that glaring need this offseason. What is that glaring need? Offensive line. This is a no-brainer. Joe Burrow was the most sacked quarterback in 2021, didn't have a lot of time in the pocket, and was pressured and hurried a lot. He was also sacked 9 times against the Titans, a postseason record, and sacked 7 times in a Super Bowl, which is tied with Roger Staubach for most in any Super Bowl. Spend all of the money and draft picks on improving the offensive line. The LA Rams are Super Bowl champions, and they did it with such a talented roster with Matthew Stafford, Offensive Player of the Year Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr., Robert Woods, Gators legend Van Jefferson, Tyler Higbee, Andrew Whitworth, the best defensive player in the league Aaron Donald, Von Miller, and top 5 defensive back Jalen Ramsey. Yeah, no wonder they won it all this year, but with such a talented roster, what is their #1 priority really? Well, they just need to reload. Bring back Von Miller and Odell Beckham and maybe add a few more stars through free agency. The strategy to focus on trades and signing big contracts through free agency has worked, so why stop now? If it's not broken, it doesn't need fixing. So that is it for this video and for this series for the 2022 offseason. I hope y'all have a fantastic day, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.